And the reason why the Summer Fridays lip balm being the number one beauty product is interesting is because this was a skincare brand and they pivoted to launching lip balms. So they introduced effectively a product that wasn't their hero product and owned the number one spot.
Your job as the leader or the owner is to understand your brand strategy so it's done properly. Think of Cracker Barrel. They spent $700 million on that rebrand. $700 million.
It's insanity.
On that rebrand.
It actually makes me cry.
And then they turned it around.
All of these large companies have already had to do their cash flow forecasting for basically projecting how much money they're going to be losing based on the tariffs.
I don't disagree with you, but whenever you're having a conversation with a customer in the sales process or an employee, ignore everything before the word but and pay attention to everything after but.
Alo Yoga is launching a $3,000 leather bag.
For $3,000, I should have somebody come to my home and do yoga with me for a year.
What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand. Say it again now. What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand.
Welcome back to another week on Art of the Brand.
Yeah, lots of things going on in the world at the moment. Happy to be back in the recording studio amongst all the other distractions.
Oh my gosh, in our world, it's crazy hard to know. But we've actually had a really interesting podcast that's going to be kind of all over the place today, guys. So buckle up, but in a good way.
I think in the end, they're going to learn a lot about strategy.
Totally.
A lot about content and how to scale, which I think a lot of people are missing. Most people who come and are looking for this information, in the end, they want to scale their business, but they really don't have any idea how to do it.
Well, that's what's so interesting about what we do. Like, we really are scaling experts, right? Like, well executed branding is in an effort to scale your business, but it's complicated because, and that's what makes our job so hard, because so many people that come in, they want an outcome, but they're not prepared to do the work of what's needed in order to have that outcome. Like, they just want the viral launch. They just want a Labubu type product, but you can't have those pieces unless you have a really solid brand, unless you have really solid standard operating procedures, the right team, the right leadership.
And the plan and strategy. They look at who's successful and then say, I want to be like that, but they don't see all the people who failed.
Yeah.
They don't see why they failed, and they don't see a lot of the stuff that's hidden to get to that point.
Totally.
And then they have this relative deprivation, as you know, they're always judging themselves.
Well, we've got a lot to touch on scaling today, and I also have some interesting things that I want to touch on as well. So I think let's kick off with Summer Fridays. Summer Fridays is, I think everyone listening will know, it's a skincare company. It's a leading skincare company. But if you don't know.
Well, I would say that there's probably a bunch of us who aren't that familiar with Summer Fridays.
I'm just trying to make you seem like you're still a part of the group if you were like, no idea what you're talking about, Camille. But Summer Fridays is like a leading millennial and now becoming like a Gen Z skincare brand sold in Sephora, owned by two influencers that if you and I ever get coffee, listener, I've got some inside scoop that I cannot put on the podcast. But anyways, what's interesting is that this week they put out the top 10 number one selling products and number one selling beauty brands. And number one was Summer Fridays lip balm. And the reason why the Summer Fridays lip balm being the number one beauty product is interesting is because this was a skincare brand and they pivoted to launching lip balms. So they introduced effectively a product that wasn't their hero product and owned the number one spot. But I have some interesting intel from what your brand can learn from this business move, in that I've been working with beauty companies for a while now. And when we were working with a huge drugstore company, they explained to me that the reason why so many beauty brands launch multiple SKUs of face wash is because it's a gateway product. So it's very difficult and very expensive to get people to switch their day cream or their night cream, right? There's more loyalty, there's more education.
It's $100
friction
to drop, right? So like you need to be convinced, that level of convince to get people to put their $100 there as opposed to where they're used to is difficult.
And it's also, there's just so many friction points, so much randomness that goes into it.
And we've talked to people, it's ironic that samples is like this big bait and switch, because you can't tell if the product works in skincare by one sample, like, one daily application. If it feels silky smooth, it works, but you can't tell if it's actually good for your skin until you've used it 3 to 6 months.
Well, based on the efficacy. Well, that's why they tend to put like tons of silicone and tons of perfume. They need to give you something that your brain can right away be like,
oh my
this
God,
works.
this is amazing.
Yeah. But what's interesting is people are the least loyal to face wash historically. So they would cheat on their array of brands with face wash.
I could see that.
But the new gateway product in beauty has become lip balm. And for a bunch of reasons. One, it taps into the lipstick effect. Like people can have like 20, 30. I have so many lip balms. I have zero loyalty. In fact, I'm like perpetually on the quest for the best lip balm. And I don't know what I'm looking for in the lip balm, but I'm just convinced that a better one is out there. So I just buy
what a
them.
perfect market condition for people who need to buy something.
Yes.
There's just so many people
It's
who
the
need to buy
treat
something
culture.
because you don't know, like lips are skin,
Yeah.
right? So it is skincare. It's just you know.
Well, the best too was when it's like tinted a bit, because it's like it's makeup and it's skincare, right?
Yeah.
So that's what made it so intelligent is that they basically have become a leading beauty brand because they were able to introduce a better gateway product into their brand universe. So what's really interesting about this piece is, even if you're not in beauty, thinking about how do you get customers into your brand universe? What is the entry point that you can tap into from buying psychology to allow less friction and more people to try your brand?
I came up with a new slogan: lip care is skincare, and then you can do a higher price point or something because people don't see it as skincare. But by getting them, that's why it makes sense for me for Summer Fridays to get into lip balm, because it's not just a candy, you know, like those red chapsticks. It was like more like a candy, right? They're kind of saying, hey, our lip balm is skincare for your lips.
But they're not even like it's funny what you just said. It's actually like elevated candy because they like are super scented. They're like pigmented and then they kind of like look like candy. The only thing that's interesting when you talk about like charging the higher price point, I would sooner buy 7 from 7 different companies at the $20 to $25 than I would buy one lip balm at $50. Like I just wouldn't do it. And it's actually a really interesting conversation because the human brain is obviously imperfect. The idea of like that treat economy of like buying into something that you like, but my brain also understands rationally that there isn't like a $30 delta for improvement of like what's possible unless it's like literally got like retinol and stuff and it's more skincare than lip care.
Well, that's just an angle I would take because we all know that when we have a lip crack, it's like a 2-week pain process that we don't want. You know, that lip that
But
doesn't
that's totally different. That needs to be more like that's like Carmex. That's why I have so many of the yellow Carmexes everywhere.
Yeah.
It needs to be medicated. It's actually like the beauty brands are
to
more
fix
superficial.
It, but to prevent it. You know, that's just the angle I would use on lip balm. Is like if you don't want to have this, then use our lip balm. It's skincare.
It's a complete aside fun fact. I learned this when we were in Austria, and I need to share the wealth for anyone that's listening. I have like in the past year and a half, like in major climate changes, have started to get like dry on the sides of my mouth. And when I was in Austria,
it's all a mess.
It's shut up. It's the language barrier. She was like full blown German. I'm like full blown, can hardly say good morning in German. But when we were like pointing at each other and I'm like this and like dry, she understood right away. She actually gave me this like eye silicone product and she goes, this eye lubricant is actually the best thing for that. I put it on in an hour, it was gone. And this is something that usually like will haunt me for weeks.
Okay, well, why aren't we approaching that company and encouraging them to launch a new product line that we
maybe we launch it. You know what, Pepe, we're cutting this out. No, I'm kidding. We're kidding.
No, we should reach out to them because that seems, the way you just told that story is spectacular. And if a chemist or a pharmacist knows it, to me, that smells like opportunity.
It does. It reeks of it. So I just thought that was really intelligent. Yeah. And I think that a lot of brands they need to start thinking in terms of buyer psychology, thinking outside the box. Like marketing is warfare. Like you are at war in your category. And that's the biggest problem is that business owners, you're sitting on your own little island and you obviously think your product is great. You have so much passion. You love what you do. But if you're not making it easy for someone to come in and try your brand because of the limitations that exist within that industry, you are setting yourself up to fail.
Our clients want to scale. And when you're trying to scale, you have to think out of the box, or what I consider asymmetric strategic thinking. You essentially want to entrap somebody. Now, it's got a negative connotation in policing, But in your business, you want to entrap somebody. You want to ensnare them. You want to put breadcrumbs to lead them to where you want to go, or trick them into trying your product and liking it. So you have to think out of the box, ways to get the attention of your potential customers, to get them in the door so that you can then get that loyal customer year over year.
Well, and this perfectly segues into something else I want to talk about today, which is the recipe for virality. The other thing that makes lip balm brilliant is it's a built-in viral product. It's portable. So anywhere that a woman goes with that lip balm, she's signaling to everyone that sees her putting it on a small Summer Fridays billboard, right? And it really has that virality because it takes you outside the home. Like, it's harder with the friction points for evening cream when it's like the intimacy of like you, your partner, and your dog who can't tell anybody that you're using that evening cream. And there's such a big, and then that's the other issue too, is like we don't trust influencers anymore. So like, it's for someone to post about truly using the product, like it has, like, one, there's so much trust there, but two, it's just there's so much friction to get that, like, that evangelism with that product. That lip balm is so intelligent.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say we don't trust influencers anymore. Like, I think a lot of marketing agencies are a little behind that. They don't like, so we see all the time people who are paying influencers to do their stuff. But to me, when I think of it, the best picture is if some paparazzi got a picture that looked into the purse of somebody famous and you could see a Summer Fridays in there, like unintentional use disclosure. Do you know what I mean?
That's a content format that works really well, like what's in my bag, because it's, even if it's like some of the stuff is like paid stuff thrown in, it's at a price point where it doesn't annoy you. But I even analyze my own behavior. Like, there's so many, because I'm in branding, I am a purveyor of the best, right? Not the best by meaning most expensive, but like the most well executed. So I just have really great shit in every category. But I even hesitate myself to post about it when even it's authentic, because I don't find that there's an authentic moment to be like, here are the 4 products I'm using right now. Like, I don't spend my life thinking in terms of like influencer content. I don't even find an authentic way for me to share the products that I'm using. So it's a very difficult way to convert somebody.
Maybe it's a good time for me to say what's in my bag. What's in my bag is always a self-defense pen.
It's true.
Which I could teach. I think every female, I bought it for all the daughters, everybody around me. Just go on Amazon and put in self-defense pen. This is a rudimentary one, but there's a lot of good ones. But a good self-defense pen held like this could really take an attacker and put them back if they come at you. And it goes through security, but it's good to have something on you that you can use.
I think we should do a segment in upcoming, like, like self-defense by Phillip Milano.
Right.
Branding and self-defense.
I always have sugar for the type 1 diabetes. I always, whenever I travel, have cash. Not too much, but always cash, because whenever you're in a crunch and you can often get yourself out of situations with a US 100 wherever you go in the world. And I have my little Chanel money clip thing that you got me that I've had for years.
Gucci.
It's Gucci, sorry. It's my only piece of branded stuff that I wear.
And at least 2 sets of my AirPods that you... He steals all of my effing AirPods. It drives me nuts because I'm going to be on
We'll be on calls.
And he walks by in the office and it like, oh my God, there's no other anger than that. You also always have my cords in your bag, like my MacBook cords.
Anyhow.
Great point.
You should do what's in your bag at some point later.
Well, my Mary Poppins bag of tricks. I mean, it's literally enough for a John and Kate plus 8. Like, they're 8 kids. But another thing too that I really like about the Summer Fridays thing I want to touch on is the rule of 7. So I had a really interesting conversation this past week with a really large CPG company. They're in the beauty space, funny enough. And we were having a conversation about influencers, and they're doing this huge launch into brick and mortar, and we really want to set off a splash with like a big name. And the conversation, it's funny when you have these conversations at the highest level, that it reminds me that wherever you are on your journey, whatever size your business is, that we should be discussing this conversation, and that influencers have a role and they have a place within a very special place that you reach, usually within having a tipping point in market, right? There's a point where people know about you, but you really become like a name when you have an influential person that makes sense to be tied to your brand with like a big activation moment. But the most relevant point to this is when you talk about like ROI, right? Because you have to pay someone who has a notable name to leverage their platform to connect your brand to it. But the big piece that most business owners miss is that you're not spending for that campaign. If you're stretching yourself too thin in an effort to use an influencer to make back money on that launch, you're not ready for the role of the influencer, because
Well said.
you have to understand the rule of 7 in marketing, and that you have to have a minimum of 7 touch points with a brand to form an association between the logo and what the brand does / represents. So that's why McDonald's is such a powerful brand, because it's one of the first brands that children associate golden arches with chicken nuggets, right? They understand that association of a place that looks like this serves that and has a place and like is an
Happy Meal.
happy meal.
That's why they had toys.
Yes.
It brought them in. It got them associated at an early age,
Right.
as a happy space. From an influencer perspective, you're right. And in the rule of 7, even when we've done billboard campaigns, like there's just a hard science, and I can't explain it, but there's a hard science that if you don't spend enough, you might as well just spend 0. Like you have to get over the threshold. So you can't just buy one billboard, leave it up for 4 weeks. You might as well just throw your money away. And that's just a psychological reality. I don't know if it's true, but that's just what the industry says. I was thinking the other day about influencers, and remember the Dos Equis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't often drink beer, but when I do, I drink Dos Equis. I love that kind of concept in terms of how I would be moving towards influencers, as opposed to them pretending. Like there are influencers who are paid to promote products, and then there are influencers that you respect as a customer or consumer and that you want to mimic them, and then there are influencers that create an aspirational element. The Dos Equis guys want to be that guy, so cool, and so then they think, hey, I don't drink beer all the time, I'll do. But not seeing strategy in the use of influencers from a lot of agencies these days.
You're not wrong, but you're also not often the target for
Yeah.
influencers and celebrities at this point, right? So you're also kind of not really the right person to be.
Well, but I get influenced to buy, but there's a dominance of influencers who are the popular people as opposed to influencers who are the powerful people.
But that's also what makes this complicated, and I kind of want to move past this, is that it's like every conversation we have, everything we're talking about has to be done by someone that knows what they're doing, because there's so much room for spending money without effect, because there's no college on the line. Like people don't have anything on the line. Like they can spend people's money and not know what they're talking about. So it has to be strategic. But when you talk, it's interesting that you bring up like the Dos Equis guy, because when I'm explaining this to clients and we're having this conversation, the larger question you have to ask yourself is, you're now changing the position of your brand and the real estate that it owns within your potential customer's mind. Like, what is it worth to you in your brand when someone says beer and the first 3 names that come to mind are Corona, Dos Equis, and Coors Light? Like, when you're competing in that category, what is that worth to you? Because that is literally everything. Like if you're a brand that's sitting in that mushy middle that we talk about, where people don't think of you when they name your category, like you don't have category dominance, you're fighting a very different battle than when you're up against the top 3 or 4 names. So when you move into doing things like having influencers or celebrities, or you're doing like these larger activation campaigns, it's actually almost like a type of quantum physics that I want to define, where it's like when you're like over analyzing it and you put too much pressure on it, it doesn't work, opposed to when you understand the role it plays in the larger universe you're trying to build.
Yeah, but remember, marketing is warfare. As you're scaling, you need to capture ground. So you don't capture ground by going up against the strongest player first. You find a segment of the market that's unattended, where there's not a lot of resources or focus, and then you go in and you become the name of that small niche. You capture territory, and then you can expand from it and hope you can expand before they pay attention to you and come and crush you.
And great point. What I'm trying to underscore though is, like, for example, like the David's protein and cod example, right? They're an intelligent team that is going to go far, because they didn't put all their eggs in one basket to launch that campaign. Like they understand that that's a longer term brand play that they're building to earn respect, reputation, and awareness with their customer over time, right? Like the idea is you have to think about it it like you're building up a condo building, right? To your point, you're going up against skyscrapers. You're trying to build up each floor by floor so that eventually you're competing with the big guys. You have to see these branding moves as you're adding on more floors so that you still have a lot of more floors to go. You've got space, you've got time. You're growing into being this tall brand, but you have to make these decisions that have asymmetric upside that bring you more floors and increase your value.
There's a lot to unpack there. I was working with larger corporation last week, and I want like entrepreneurs who are scaling to keep in perspective, because I find a lot of them want to be touchy-feely, which is good. I'll share this. This big company literally uses the term that they create kill teams. So they have people who look at the market and they look at anybody that is starting to encroach on market share. And once they get over a certain part of 4 to 6%, they will go in and kill that product by undercutting them at a loss for 2 years, right? So if you're in the business and you want to scale and take on the big boys, it's not the time to hang around people who are just giving you positive affirmations all day long. You can think The Secret all day long, unless you're in the right category alone. But if you're competing
Or you
against
come from a really rich family,
yeah.
like.
But if you're competing against big players,
Yeah.
big organizations actually have kill teams to go out and destroy competition. So you need strategy to make things work.
You're correct. I would though also say that a lot of the people that are listening to this are just are competing in like very saturated industries, and you're just doing literally doing more of the same. Like you're just moving around the same stuff. But what's interesting about that conversation I had with the client that I had last week too, is it led into the conversation about they were analyzing the cost per influencer for the launch. So they were comparing the influencer's cost versus how much they anticipated to make, right? Like they were comparing one for one. And I'm like, this is a broken way of looking at it because you're putting way too much pressure on an influencer to sell your products when that's not your goal. Their goal is they're a person of influence. They're increasing your awareness in market. They're giving you more touch points. They're creating more opportunities for randomness of all the things that are like, think about, we're all ants, right? Like we're all living our solo lives. We all have our own problems. We just need to have these products pop up. Like Philip just bought literally so much, this brand called Mudwater. I don't know how they got you on like 7 tins of
It wasn't 7, it was 3-4 tins.
It was like crazy.
It's
But my
amazing,
point
though.
is like you're an ant that has like that's facing your own things right now, your own problems, and they were positioned as a guide that you bought it in that instant, right? Like there's a randomness to the universe.
Can I tell you why I bought the Mudwater? It's an interesting, when I think of it, I haven't thought about it. I didn't know you were going to bring it up. But obviously over the last few years, you've heard a lot about the value of mushrooms. Right.
Yeah.
So your kind of rule of 7,
like
you've
that,
heard.
oh my God, that episode on Netflix where
Yeah.
they're all interconnected. They're like
Right.
all buddies.
And so we've just heard like that chaga, lion's mane. These are all good. Like Rogan has been doing it. But then there's so much choice out there. It's like hard and it tastes like crap for the most part. But this Instagram Mudwater, check it out. It's curated beautifully on Instagram. And something about the presentation made me listen to it. And I like the name Mudwater for some reason.
It's a great name.
Right? And it's branded well, but it brought me in. And because I knew that, like it had a beautiful sales funnel to get me to take a shot. Right? And I just bought it right from Instagram within 5 minutes of seeing the first ad
But
ever.
you're also primed for it, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got some big things coming up. You're focusing right now more on health and wellness. You're consuming less books right now. You're consuming more podcasts. So of your ant journey, I know I'm oversimplifying it, but like that's what people, they business owners like have so much ego, right? You're sitting there waiting for people to come and buy your product. You have to realize that like nobody cares about you. You have to make them care based on what's going on in their lives, right? So when you look at an influencer, their job, like a Joe Rogan, is just to educate on mushrooms. This is what I'm using. You may or may not be ready to receive that information, but regardless if you're ready to buy and you consumed it, that's a data point. That's a move in the rule of 7, right? And the reason why it's relevant to speak about this bigger picture is you need to be looking at these investments based on creating a yearly budget. So enough businesses don't think about these activations as part of a larger whole. How do you analyze at the end of the year your overall success by of all the small things you did? And we've got so much data on this, but even selfishly from the content we create, I'm constantly asking speaking opportunities, clients that come in, like, what made you decide? And they're like, I don't know. It was 8 or 9 months of consuming content. I really trust you. I really like you. Like it wasn't one video, but it's the accumulation of the investment in totality that changes your brand's position.
I think what most people say is that nobody is saying what we're saying in this space online. Like it's just full of pablum. And so when people listen to you, you're inspiring because you're saying things that other people like, but that's what you're given. And businesses have to think, what is their special sauce? Like, I think too many businesses want to say all of my stuff is great.
Yeah.
Right. And what Summer Fridays kind of did is said, okay, well, we'll just make the coolest lip balm. Right. And it'll bring people in. But like, it's like what we talk about restaurants. Everybody has a great steak and the chef wants to say my steak is the best or my branzino is the best. But to get them in, if you have the best bread in the city, you know, people will talk about it and come in and then become loyal to your steak.
I literally that
Do you
video
see what I
should have
mean?
done better. Like the bread standard in
Like-
Ireland was out of control.
Just for people who missed it, like this is a pet peeve of mine. How many people have ever had garlic bread and sent it back because it was too garlicky?
Never.
Like,
Never
so
happens.
I don't want a suggestion of garlic. I don't want a suggestion. I want garlic. I want to be delivered. I want to go to a restaurant and say, oh my God, this is too garlicky. It's never happened. Why not? Why are you saving money on garlic? You know what I mean?
a great
Make
point.
your deliverable amazing. People will become attracted to you because of that. And then enjoy all of your other offerings.
I love that. It's a great point.
Thank you.
But I do want to quickly touch on this.
Tell me
Summer
where the
Fridays
garlic bread
thing.
is too garlicky, by the way, in the comments.
Oh, yeah, we'd love to hear that. Please don't say Eastside Mario's. The thing that's really relevant to that point, though, is it is important to note that Mariana Hewitt and Lauren Ireland, the owners of Summer Friday, are very big Instagram influencers. So the reason why this also worked is they understood the role of portability in order to get virality on social media to increase that rule of 7 awareness. Now, the reason I say that isn't to dissuade you, because the reality is that one business's success is unique to that brand and business, which is why you need to be thinking strategically about yours. But to find your proverbial lip balm for the strategy, your brand, your personal brand that can tap into your psychology, like what they did is translatable. It's not stealing the lip balm. Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like it's that level of thinking. But the reason why I brought up this second aspect is I have a general guide for developing a budget. And the general guide is you want to look at your projected gross revenue. So what are you anticipating to create from a revenue standpoint, not profit, for the year, right? So you look at the entire year, and based on that number, if you're a new brand going into market, you should be putting aside 20 to 25% of the projected gross. That's including like labor, like if you're hiring a marketing team, a strategist, an email writer, as well as ad spend and execution. So if you're going to conferences, like anything within the marketing realm.
Yeah, I just think you have to qualify that is that those numbers are sometimes useful, but it's the quality of how it's done. Like I've seen people put more and it'd be a complete waste. I've seen people put less and done it asymmetrically and had a far greater upside. Like
100%.
How many clients have you sat down with and challenged their conference budget in terms of actual sales and realized that they were just doing what they were told they're supposed to do for the last 5 years, right? Like, so the numbers has to be tied to good strategy or else.
But most people don't even know where to begin with a number, right? So you, again, the reason why you're listening to this is that you need strategy, but in order to have a developed guide. Moving on from that, if you're an established brand in market, it should be 15 to 18%. Roughly. So if you're someone that's been in market for 5 years, for 6 years, you want to continue to grow, but you don't, but again, the difference between the new to market versus the established market is that marketing rule of 7. So you have to spend slightly less money because you already have that repetition in market. So when you don't have that rule of 7 build up, that's why you need to spend more money, because you're trying to launch more ships to start connecting with more people. Whereas the 15 to 18% is more awareness, less discoverability. Discoverability is still a part of it, but it's less of an urgency because more people should know about you. Both of those percentages, though, have nothing to do with the cost of launching your brand. So like redoing your logo, redoing your website, redoing like your marketing materials, like anything that is like a actual like foundational build is a sunk cost and should not be a part of the marketing budget, because your brand also has to look good.
Yeah. You know, I'm just constantly struggling with how bad strategy is. So all these numbers don't really mean anything because most people executing strategy are just so bad at it that they're just wasting time making things. You know what I mean? And so especially in the corporate world, this is your budget, give it to an agency, they're going to spend it. Your job as the leader or the owner is to understand your brand strategy so it's done properly. Think of Cracker Barrel. They spent $700 million on that rebrand. $700 million
It's insanity.
on that
It
rebrand.
actually makes me cry.
And then they turned it around. That's a $700 million mistake because they hired people who fit the right categories to do something that was nonsense. Imagine if they gave $700 million to our agency to make user-generated or good content across North America with some tweaks. Like imagine the difference to the bottom line of that. That's why people have to be very, very aware.
But I do think this is the great divide right now, though, in let's call it marketing, not branding, because these huge companies are being soaked by these like outdated liberal agencies that are like really selling. Like there's never an end point to the DEI narrative. Like there's never a point where you've done enough. Like that's where they keep racking up the bills and spending more money, and you create this ineffective product. I would say though, of the businesses that we speak to, 6 out of 10 don't even have a guide for even roughly what they should be thinking on spending, and they're often not spending enough.
Why most people steer away from strategy is it involves difficult decisions where you have to say no to people. You have to say no to departments. You have to say no to options. What strategy is using a limited amount of resources, focusing on the thing that produces the best results, right? And so when it comes to marketing, you might have a budget, but you need a strategy. How are you going to use that budget to get the best results? Because you only have a limited amount of dollars.
But most businesses, where they falter is that they are more comfortable spending on the bottom of the funnel than investing in growing their brand. And that's why I'm pushing you to think big picture. Like I just did a cohort with these realtors are like, we're talking like the average home they sell is $10 million, like per home, like starting. Like these are like the top realtors in the United States in all of the major markets. And the last takeaway for week 5 of the 6 weeks of the cohort, they were like, the number one thing I learned in this is that I need to stop being cheap and hire the videographer. And I'm like, of course you do. Like, I'm like, if you get one $10 million listing when you already have 20, like most people aren't thinking in terms of, I can't see this right away, therefore it doesn't make sense for me to invest in it, opposed to you need to have a better picture of, based on what you're intending to make, what you can afford to spend. Because by the time you get too stuck, the leads dry up, your competitors are killing you on socials, you're too far behind. It is going to cost you not only a lot of money to get started, but time. Because at that point, you are starting from like pretty much nothing. And there's no one, unless you're going to like just do controversial shit on the internet, like you can't grow at a super fast rate. It takes time. It takes time to compound.
Yeah, when it comes to the science of scaling, a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses, you know, they need an influx of new thinking and accountability because what got them there won't get them to the next level. And so they keep, you know, and that's what prevents the next level of scaling. That's where strategy needs to come in. If people are still listening at this moment, I would encourage you to follow and share the content because we provide this information weekly to help people. And we know from the engagement, there's tons of people watching who aren't following. So if you can do us a favor and follow, and in exchange, I will give you a rogue lawyer behavioral psychology moment. You heard Camille earlier say, I don't disagree with you, but whenever you're having a conversation with a customer in the sales process or an employee, ignore everything before the word but and pay attention to everything after but. Because what's said before but is just a platitude, but what the person really wants to communicate with you are the words after but. And when you're in a sales cycle, always remember to pay attention to what's said after but.
I agree with you, but
I agree with you, but you said.
The only thing I often agree with what you're completely correct, and I use that rule often in sales and in working with clients. With you, my only struggle is I do think that two things can be right at the same time. And I struggle with when we're talking because I agree that you are correct, but I want to give you more data points for you to consider. I shouldn't have had to justify myself, but I just felt like I needed to get it out.
No, but it's like when somebody says, oh, I've been meaning to call you, but I've been very busy. What you can take from that is you're not important enough for them to call you. compared to the other things that they're busy with.
Yeah,
So
well-
just pay attention to what's said after but. And what is the most powerful word in the English language?
Your name.
Well, the name, yes. But in terms of convincing, it's because. If you pay attention when you're talking to people, if you want somebody to listen, when you slow down and say because. The reason I did this is because. When people say because, you'll hear people you'll see them lean in when somebody says because they're really interested in knowing what comes up after because. And so if you're selling your product, the reason why you should get into this car or buy this house or do my car is because, and that's how
Only super cool people will drive this car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're one of them.
the because speaks to their identity.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that.
We better get a crap ton more follows after
Like,
that.
Jesus, guys, like we're doing backflips over here for you. Okay, so
I just want sea bass with laser beams.
pretty much. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually something else that came up in several conversations that we've had with our bigger clients. Just as a reminder, we try to talk about the bigger clients on these podcasts because I think it's really interesting to share with small business owners what happens, behind the scenes with these big companies, and to remind you that they are just as lost as you are. In fact, the things that I hear from the bigger companies are often 10 times stupider than from the really well-intentioned small business owner. It's just a difference of how much money they can burn because it's not theirs. But the thing that's really interesting that we've been talking about with these big companies is this looming idea of tariffs. And I really haven't seen anybody on the internet talk about it. And what's interesting is all of these large companies have already had to do their cash flow forecasting for basically projecting how much money they're going to be losing based on the tariffs. Right. And it was money that they are losing that they can't control. So in some ways, the marketing teams have less pressure and less money because they're already anticipating future down quarters, like going into next year, 2026. And what's interesting that we're hearing kind of in these private meetings is all of these big brands are waiting for the first big brand to offset the tariff price point to the customer. So yes, costs are increasing all around, but by and large, these big companies are eating these losses because they're waiting for a behemoth, not a super small company, to offset it to their small, clientele to start doing it. And I think it's a really interesting conversation for us to have because it's interesting that everyone is saying this behind closed doors, but no one is saying it online.
It's interesting, but it depresses me because it's just a constant lack of imagination. People are like one-dimensional leader thing. It's like, oh, I'm waiting for the big brand to do it. Get ahead of the narrative. Like I do PR consulting and coaching. You got to get ahead of the narrative. If tariffs are coming and undermining your business, you need to message that, right? And be honest, if you have brand loyalty, if you sell purely on price, well, you got some problems with tariffs because you don't have another option to convince people to buy your product. It's only price. And if nobody else does it, then you have to keep your price advantage or you don't sell anything. Right? So a 30% tariff moves you into the medium. You no longer have a brand value to a consumer, so you can't do it unless everybody else does it. But if you're at the top or if you have brand loyalty, just get out in front of the narrative. What I would do is say, hey, look, these tariffs are kicking us in the butt, right? We're working to move our production as much as possible back to our target market of the United States or wherever it is, right? But in the meantime, we are continuing to do this, but expect some prices because of it.
I'm taking the devil's advocate approach this time.
Yeah.
I really think that these companies shouldn't. And I think that these companies should be looking at themselves in the face with a very critical eye.
With a mirror. They're going to be looking at themselves in the face.
I think they need to be taking a hard look at how they're spending because for a long time, it's been a lot of status quo, throwing a ton more money to marketing companies that are super inflated, and this braggery of the founders flying around in private jets based on the margins that they can make from their products. And I don't think that there's appetite for much more because they want to maintain a margin that was unrealistic for offshore goods.
We're talking more about like the non-public companies that get their inventory from overseas
I'm
The
not.
private
I'm actually
jet.
not talking. I'm talking exactly about the big companies that we've been in the boardrooms in for the last 2 weeks that are saying they're projected to be losing over $10 million in their first quarter. And they're waiting for the first big company
Yeah.
to make an announcement that they're offsetting it to the
Yeah.
customers.
Now, what I would come in with kind of guerrilla tactics is like fire agencies, because you're spending this amount of money, but you're not getting the value. Fire the agencies, take half, you can spend half of it on whether it's somebody like us, guerrilla marketing techniques, and then that's where you can absorb it, because there is wastage in how people are spending money. You can have some austerity mechanisms, but most of those big companies are blowing that tariff amount on crappy marketing.
Well, that's my point. Is I don't think anyone is actually speaking about the truth of tariffs in that it allowed businesses to have a still way below where companies had to have cost of goods before, but it's blowing out a margin that we were only able to access on the backs of emerging economies, which in a world of bio warfare, when we're probably going to be expecting more pandemics, we need to be more self-reliant within the countries that we live in. And I saw this fitness wear brand that I follow. This is like first when the tariffs came out, and they're the first to be posting on all their private jets, these fabulous trips they go on with these beautiful models. They order all of their workout gear from China. I know their margins. It's like $2 for a bra that they sell for $135, and they're complaining because they're getting a tariff hit at $500,000 for their shipment that's coming in from China. And I'm like, eat it.
True.
Because I think that that time has passed where it was a golden era.
But that's why the tariffs, even politically, everybody wants to like slam on it. But the absence of tariffs allowed companies to do that. And then there's all these people upset with tariffs, but it's like, no.
Where does it go?
We're like saying, no, you can't just buy it cheap in China, have 1,000% markup, and then have a private jet when they could be made here a little bit more expensive, and maybe you don't have 2 private jets. Like, that's why, like, if you're thinking about your nation, your economy, they're not bad just because of what color your politics are. You need to look at it. And your point is really good. That's why I talk about politics sometimes and business is sometimes it overlaps. And what we're not doing enough in our world is thinking about black swan events.
Yeah.
And, with some of the companies I work, at least once a year we sit down and we bring up that Nicholas Telle black swan thing and say, okay, what are 5 things that could happen in the next 2 years that could destroy our business? We at least war game things that could, right?
Tariffs,
loss of a supplier, regulatory changes, but by at least war gaming it, then we look at their operations and say, hey, is any part of your business dependent more than 80% on one supplier, one thing? So you need to build that into it if you're going to survive over the long run. Nobody does that. I don't think many corporations we've ever to do it. They're living off these great margins, as you say. They're just going to bleed the company out, right? And in the end, they'll just move on somewhere else.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like, it's been really the most incredible time to be able to like, I even watch like some beauty brands, right? Like they literally, Dior will launch a new lip gloss. The owner of this other beauty brand will love the lip gloss, will take the lip gloss off of the Sephora shelf, ship it back to a manufacturer in China. They spin it, they pull out the formulation, and then they'll change one ingredient, and then they can sell. Like that level of access and the ability to like launch a TikTok shop, like sell a $2 million in product in a weekend is incredible. But like with that, something has to change. Like that perpetually cannot happen forever. And it's also really frustrating to the consumer when these brands can just blow money on hiring like the biggest models, the biggest photo shoots, because they have these crazy margins, and you're buying a product that falls apart after 4 washes that you spent $150 on. It's a problem.
They're leveraging human psychology that if they can create brand buzz, they can get margins that are crazy, but they're not investing in their product. It's a short-term strategy, not a long-term strategy.
And that's also why I love working with small businesses, especially with these cohorts,
Mediums,
because small and medium size. Well, I know I love a small business.
I love
a small business, honestly. Because I don't want to use my powers for evil. I want to use them for good. And that's the thing that really bugs me, is that like we can analyze these campaigns all day and we can talk about them and blah, blah, blah. But like, honestly, at the end of the day, Summer Fridays I roasted, a few months ago, because they did this like literally would have had to be like a $3 million 2-day event. And it shows you like how much money they're making and how large their margin is. And it's got to be called out.
Brand loyalty is important because you can survive storms if you have brand loyalty. If there's something else that brings somebody to your product or service or offering other than just price, if it's just price and hype, it's transitional. But I wanted to share with the listeners, I said relative deprivation earlier, and I think too much in marketing and business, we're just always comparing each other on Instagram. And do you mind if I tell the relative deprivation
Please.
story? Interesting psychological concept. When I was in former Republic of Yugoslavia as a peacekeeper years ago, there was 2 villages across a zone of separation, let's say a Croatian and a Serbian village that had been fighting each other, and they hadn't had food resupply for 3 months, so they were starving. On day 1, we bring in a resupply shipment, but because of the zone of separation, we can only bring it to one village. So let's say we bring it to village A, and we come in and they're just jubilant. It's like flowers on the streets. Thank you. We're giving them bread, milk, some vegetables. The next day we get the next shipment, supposed to be identical. We go to the other side, we deliver it to them, and then they're jubilant. The day after, we go back into village A, and there's a riot, and they attack the military vehicles. And the question is why? They were so happy, but what they learned is that village B got eggs, and they didn't get eggs. So they were deprived relative to somebody else. Even though they were just ecstatic, they actually rioted. And it escalated into like a use of force scenario because somebody else did better than them or got more than them. And when you're a business owner, don't get into that kind of relative deprivation comparison, because it can bring you down and take you away from your goal of what makes me happy, what is effective, and how do I build a loyal community.
Yeah, I love that story. And it's so true, right? Like you only get sad about things you thought that you could have had. Like I feel like that way when I go to freaking HomeSense in Winners. You know, like I walk in, I fall in love with something, and then I have to leave, and then I keep thinking about it, and then I go back and it's not there, and it's like, why am I sad when I didn't know that I could have had that? Like it didn't exist in my world. And when you go on vacation, you look at souvenirs and stuff, right? It's like the idea that you could have had something and you don't. It really is like bit fucked up.
But you make a post, you get great engagement, you get some positive comments, and then you look at somebody else who did a post way better, and all of a sudden you feel down. Like that's a social media disease that's afflicting people.
Well, it's also the reason why you get so focused on like, what do you want? You know, like I've even found myself caught up by it too with other people that are in our space, and I'm like, you know, look at how many followers they have, or look at, you know, what, and it comes down to what it's really where I've grown up about this is, what is it that I want to get? And when I look at a lot of the comments they have and a lot of like, it's not my target, right? So it's not what I'm actually speaking to and want. I think that's a really powerful thing. We call it the dream audience builder, right? It's going to be a part of the social media planner that's coming soon. But it's the whole idea of...
Have you even told people that they can register to be one of the first 500 signed copies?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, don't say anything yet.
I won't say anything yet. So
that planner is amazing.
But that really is a core thing, right? Is like, what is it that you actually want, so that you don't get caught up in the mental health trap of like the ugliness of socials. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. So the next thing I want to talk about, Alo Yoga is launching a $3,000 leather bag. And I cannot believe that this is not an April Fool's joke.
For $3,000, I should have somebody come to my home and do yoga with me for a year. Well, I'm trying to figure out why. I've been researching what the decision making, what the strategy is.
There's zero strategy.
Because
it's delusional. Like I wanted to say aspirational, but like aspirational tends to have like a dream. It is literally delusional. If they wanted to get into luxury goods, they should have created like a sister brand with a different name that could skew luxury, because it makes zero sense. Alo Yoga to me is holding on by a thread. When I look at the segmentation in the market right now, they own premium. Like they really own premium. For middle class people or lower middle class, it's an aspirational brand. It's kind of like that Club Monaco price point or Aritzia price point. Like you're looking at about $150, $200 when you spend there. Like it's a big deal to have an Alo Yoga outfit. And then to people with money, it's still a brand that they can signal that they're wearing a brand, but it shows a lack of delusion, because who's sweating in a Chanel workout outfit? Like that is just such an extreme.
the angle, they're mostly a Gen Z target market, but there's older
No.
people using, well, their CEO says Gen Z is.
They were
Targets
Gen Z,
Gen
but
Z.
the thing that's really interesting is I find it's
I almost finished the sentence there.
shut up. I find it's actually so many Gen X's and millennials. Like it's really has skewed to be like not you because like you're actually quite trendy and fashionable, but people who have moved away
I
from
liked Alo.
Lululemon.
Like I wanted something other than Lululemon. I thought Alo might be it, but I think from what I read on the CEO is he believes the next status marker is wellness. And so what he's trying to do is link wellness with status by having an expensive Italian leather bag with crystals that reflect intentions. So that Alo bag will be a better quality bag than any Louis Vuitton bag that's plastic because it's going to be Italian leather. It's going to have a crystal and he's trying to say that wellness is status, which, successful people are often into wellness, but you know what I mean? So I can understand it, but what you're saying is they haven't done the brand groundwork to justify that because it just in the store, there's like a giant jump between the most expensive item and then a $3,000 bag.
Well, the most expensive item is really not. It's expensive, but it's not actually expensive. Like it's not a paycheck expensive. And that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that what would have made the most sense is them start to go up market, like start doing like luxury retreats, start doing like investing in more of like they tried to do a Pelotonish model, but like they didn't really roll it out. Like do more of the Alo studios in like major cities like they have in LA, or start selling like premium like a full-blown like cashmere set, that's
Hey,
like $700.
You know what? I agree with you, but I think you're just going down one trail and you're not thinking like they're launching it into scarcity. There's only a limited amount of bags. They're going to be at their sanctuary stores. They have a limited amount of crystal things. So what's the risk to it? If there are wealthier people who love Alo and want to move into it, like I don't know if there's a risk to it, but it could be a way to launch into making Alo a little bit more luxury.
I don't think rich people love Alo.
It's not rich people. Dumb people buy these expensive bags. This is the problem. Rich people generally don't spend
You just
this
said
money.
rich people, though. You said rich people who like Alo, and I said I don't think rich people love Alo. I think rich people tolerate Alo because it's
What I'm
within
saying
their
is that
price range.
the people who are buying it, their parents are rich, like in many cases. So there's a lot of people who didn't earn their money spending a lot of money on dumb stuff, right? So there's a market there. Like,
Okay, so if they have 5 bags, I'm sure they can find 5 people in the world that will buy them. But it's not building anything meaningful for the brand that's going to be measurable.
well, but isn't it the highest end wellness gym bag on the market? Like,
But
'cause you
Alo isn't the highest end gym wear
but
brand on the
maybe
market.
they're trying to because Louis Vuitton
But
could
they
say, I'm
can't
going to
try
make a
to-
gym bag that's, like I've seen, those fancy bags. What's the bag? The Gucci bag. Like they make Gucci gym bags, right? But to me, a Gucci gym bag made of synthetic and plastic isn't worth what Gucci charges for its gym bag. Whereas if Alo makes it out of leather with a crystal, it's going to be the same price point. Which one
But
does a
it's not
consumer
a gym
buy?
bag. It's a purse. It's a purse. Like it's a purse that you would wear to lunch. And Alo hasn't demanded the authority for someone to spend $3,000 on a purse. Like Alo is slightly more expensive than Lululemon by like $20 more expensive than Lululemon. It's like Lululemon launching a $3,000 bag. You would never buy that from Lululemon. It doesn't demand that authority. I don't disagree with you that Gucci and Louis Vuitton have lost the plot, but they at least for a lot of people demand a brand authority.
I agree with you because I love the word coherence, and it's kind of incoherent with its brand identity to go to 3,000. It sounds like somebody thought it was a good idea. We'll put some crystals on it, as opposed to making a bag that was maybe in the 500 range, right?
$800 would have been
right?
super
Yeah.
smart. An $800
Something like
leather
that,
bag
yeah.
with crystals on it, $850 would be super smart.
That's a signaler, but it's.
But $3,000 puts you into a category of Louis Vuitton, which I agree with you.
It almost exposes you to ridicule. Like it's a risky thing. We'll see how it happens, but you could almost be ridiculed. You know what I mean? Because it's not in the brand identity, and you're walking around with a $3,500 Alo bag. It's interesting.
I just think that where Alo is in its life cycle of a brand is like they grew very quick. They spent a lot of money. They IPO'd. they're in a position where people with money are wearing the product because there isn't a premium accessible alternative to workout wear, right? Like a lot of wellness has become a status signaler. Everyone is talking about weightlifting and meditating, and there's an entire wardrobe for your activewear. Alo did a better job of being more stylish and on brand than Lululemon. Lululemon kind of like lost the plot. They started using overweight models. Like they just, it really doesn't speak to a large segment of people who spend their lives counting calories and working out. So
what I heard is they want to become a luxury lifestyle brand as opposed to athleisure, and maybe, but you know, they should, like you said, they should make the best gym bag on the market that's got a little slot for your Ozempic, a little internal fan to get rid of moisture so there's no humidity. Like just really kit out and amazing.
no, I just think that there's space for what they're saying. It can't be under the name Alo, right? Because like Alo has become ubiquitous. Like it's nicer than Lululemon. It's more stylish than Vuori, but it's still, you can go in any airport and like you'll count within the first 10 minutes 20 people wearing Alo. Like it's like,
but you know what I liked about Lululemon? Like when they came out with that backpack, it was a damn good backpack for traveling.
Lululemon used to do things well. They were a great brand.
That backpack you could use for work, school, or travel.
It's amazing.
Like it was
Chip
functional.
Wilson's Little Black Leggings is actually a fantastic book. I highly recommend people read it because Lululemon had a strong brand foundation. Alo was always designed to be a pump and dump. It's like, we're going to come in with a slightly sleeker logo. We're going to copy what that brand is doing. It's going to be polyester, but it's going to be nicer things that you can wear. Now, what Alo has been doing well, and you've noticed it, they've gotten into more like stylish sets. Like they are going more up market for the way that they're dressing people. I just think it's too huge of a jump from a $300 outfit to, I think it's Alo to me I think this is the core point. Alo to me is best worn with a Louis Vuitton bag. Like it's kind of that kind of a brand. Like it's best worn with another brand. So like they should collab, you know what I mean? Opposed to trying to be all the different brand pieces.
There you are being a strategic thinker again. That's why they pay you the big bucks. But that's why you need to get out of this bubble of marketing people who don't really know what they're doing, and they're in a like that's brilliant, right? Collab with the right, that's the path to luxury lifestyle.
Yes.
Right? Is to start getting in there.
'Cause
Kind of
when I look
Skims
at-
kind of, you know, like
Skims is
Skims
doing it.
kind of had it too.
But
like
that's
I
what
like to,
Skims isn't trying to launch a $3,000
No.
bag. Like when I look at the gym we go to, and I look at like on Thursday I had a call with a high-end client who was wearing an Alo hat, like, but she was wearing it with a Van Cleef necklace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't want Alo to get into jewelry. They don't want Alo to get into leatherwear. They want Alo to do what Alo does, and then they wear their other brands around it, which increases the status of Alo.
I thought last week you were arguing that Louis Vuitton should get into socks and
No,
chin
I think
shorts.
well, so I read this book.
Oh, you read a book.
I read lots of books. I read more than him. And
She reads a lot.
I read a lot. So I read this book is actually fantastic. It's called Deluxe. And it's basically like a chronicling journey of luxury fashion. And effectively, like I wish I had read this before our episode last week where we talked about Louis Vuitton. But effectively, Louis Vuitton's strategy was to become the proverbial McDonald's
That's what this book says.
of luxury fashion, because they wanted Louis Vuitton stopped making its trunk wear and its like handmade leather goods in the 70s. Out of the two factories that were left, there was a complete decline in demand and sales for Louis Vuitton, and Bernard Arnault repurchased the brand so that people who were coming into wealth, because there was a complete wealth transfer in the United States as women started to get into the workforce, and they re-entered the workforce, which surged the demand for ready-to-wear designer goods. Before women re-entered in the 70s, there was a complete drop-off from the 40s, 50s, and 60s because there was just less demand for designer things. That the aristocracy and like what the US was trying to emulate with the European aristocracy changed. Aristocracy changed. Now, with what he said is like they basically repositioned Louis Vuitton to be the brand that like people can like buy into to buy a piece of heritage. And that's why they put Louis Vuitton stores in like every major tourist city in the world, and they're often near a McDonald's, not that to be McDonald's, but because they wanted to be accessible to the masses. So the point is,
No, but every luxury store is in most major every luxury store is in New York City, London,
no,
Toronto.
not true at all.
They're not. There's not a Cartier in New York City, London, Toronto, Miami, L.A., Honolulu. Like
Goyard, there isn't. There is. It's. You're just saying. You're saying all the brands, but it's not all the brands, right? Like Gucci has become that.
Okay.
Chanel has become that. Cartier's
Are you
become
saying
that.
this author said that because they're close to McDonald's, they wanted to become the McDonald's of luxury?
No, she said that the analogy of the way that Bernard Arnault purchased Louis Vuitton and his goal for the rollout of that brand is to become like,
Because McDonald's is in every small city. So I don't see the reference of they're like McDonald's because they're going into major tourist cities.
well, they're like McDonald's in that it's easy to access. Like it's an easy to access designer. It's for the mass markets. The way that they approach the design house and how they produce goods isn't designed to be the way that.
Now, we mentioned that they started going into malls, which ruined their brand years ago, right? That's when they moved into the suburbs.
My point is that the idea of them getting into more souvenirship, like of developing chocolates that people can like go home with and like talk about on Instagram and TikTok, taps into the idea that they're producing materials for the masses.
I don't think anybody's talking about Louis Vuitton chocolates, unless they're damn good chocolates.
Well, on Instagram and TikTok, they're, again, not your feed, not your audience. They're not, Louis Vuitton is not developing little character like chocolates for Philip Millar, who's talking about carrying a tactical pen around the streets.
Highly recommended. Check in the bio for my affiliate link for tactical pens.
As always, guys, please subscribe. Send this to a friend. And if anything,
Help us grow.
And if anything sticks with you guys and you're like, man, I keep thinking about that, send me a message on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.